So as we are meeting today is the 7th of December. And December 8th, for those of you who do not know, December 8th has, for, 2,500 years, or at least whenever this side of the world started using the Caesarean calendar, December 8th has been recognized as Buddha's Enlightenment Day. And this is the day we choose on the calendar to say this is the day. It's a little bit like Christmas in that we're like, we don't know when this actually happened. Who knows? Who cares? It doesn't actually matter much. But this is December 8th is the day we choose to recognize Buddha's enlightenment. So like in the other religious traditions, in the middle of the darkest time of year, there's some acknowledgement of the light coming. There's just an instinctual, you guys get it. It's just like, this is Hanukkah. We need light in the middle of the darkness. Oh, this is Christmas. Oh, this is holy. This is the deal. We have some recognition of the light being born of the darkness. And so in the Buddhist myth, that's the Buddha's enlightenment. Happens in the middle of the darkest time of the year. That's what we're talking about. And so what's traditional in the Zen tradition that I've spent a lot of time in is there's a week-long retreat, an 8-day retreat that ends on the 8th, which means in a perfect world, it would start on December 1st and end on December 8th, and on the last day, there's offerings made at the altar, and there's a big ceremony you do, and everybody wears robes, and then they chant this 2-page passage from Keizan, a famous Japanese Zen teacher. And I'm going to give you that 2-page thing at the end. If I give it to you now, you'll read it. You don't need that. It doesn't make very much sense, and it will make even less sense by the end of the retreat. So don't worry, you're going to get a handout, and don't worry about making sense of it because it doesn't make sense. But what I do want to speak to today just a little bit is just the myth, because we're all enacting this myth, the myth of the Buddha, right? The idea of there being a human being who made choices to wake up is the story of all of us. And I'm saying myth on purpose so that you don't mistakenly think it's about somebody who isn't you. It's about you. Does it make sense? If it's a historical account, then it happened to somebody else 2,500 years ago, and you don't need to worry about it. But if it's a myth, that means it's you. You can't run if it's a myth, because myths are about everybody. That's the point of a myth. That's like, this is going to be a universal energy expressed in this story. So they're true. They're truer than a historical. They're true in a fundamental energetic sense. Does that make sense? We all understand what a myth is. Like, oh, I get it. That's mine. Yeah, that's yours. So the story of the person who forgoes the life of wealth, who forgoes the palace, who forgoes the inheritance of the kingdom, who forgoes to disappear into the wilderness to find the true nature of the self. I hope you can feel, oh, I understand at least that energy in me. I understand that energy. I understand that energy. Every single person in this room already has figured out dying rich ain't going to do it. You've already figured out that having a big bank account doesn't actually provide you with what you imagined at one point it would. You've already figured out that a garage full of cars or everybody's already figured that out, or you wouldn't be in a meditation retreat, right? So you've already figured out the palace doesn't work. So literally or metaphorically, at least for 6 hours, you have foregone the palace, you have left the palace, and you've come to the wilderness. We're sitting together in this room, but we're all alone. That's a fair thing to say. If there's 15 people in this room, there are 15 meditation retreats happening in this room. It's beautiful that we're together, that we get to breathe each other's air, and that we are supported by the idea of I am not alone. But at the same time, I know that when the bell rings, it's just me and my mind. And there's no insulation from that fact. I've made a choice to not be insulated from that fact. So suddenly meditation is starting to sound like a very courageous thing to choose to do. So in the Buddhist myth, the decision to sit upright is again a metaphor, just like the posture you've all chosen. I'm not running. I'm still. I'm not running toward. I'm not running away. Can you feel that the stillness is literal, physical, but it's metaphorical? Because we all know what most of our lives feel like: running towards something all of the time and running away from something all of the time. We know that energy. It's a very human energy. So your choice, I'm going to sit still. Can you feel it? The myth is already enacting itself. It's already enacting itself. I'm going to sit still. I'm going to let it catch up with me. I'm not going to move toward the thing. Nope. I'm just going to stay right here. Wow. And then we have a saying, you settle the self on the self. Which doesn't make sense at first. What that means is I have an ego self. I have a normal day-to-day working identity like we all do, a personality, and I'm going to settle that for 30 minutes at a time, or for 6 hours at a time, or for 8 days at a time. I'm going to settle it on the self. So I remember. Right? So, this is from what you're going to get. Shakyamuni Buddha saw the morning star and realized enlightenment. The myth is he sits all night. And when the morning star rises, he raises his eyes, sees the morning star, and then wakes up. That's the myth. Right? The morning star we all know is the planet Venus. And she, of course, represents love. Isn't that interesting? Perhaps that's an accident. Perhaps I'm mixing Western myths and Eastern myths. Either way, damn. It works, doesn't it? So in one version of the myth, he sits all night. In another version of the myth, he sits for 7 days. In another version of the myth, he sits for 6 years. It doesn't matter. These are mythological numbers that represent a long time. At the end of our retreat today, I could ask you, did that feel like 6 hours? Your answer will be no. It felt like a lot longer than that, or a lot shorter than that, probably both. The reason that's significant is because your relationship with time is different when you are just sitting with your body and your breath. Your normal way of experiencing time changes. Everybody who's sat notices, boy, that was a long one. That was a short one. That's just interesting, right? So all night, 7 days, 6 years, doesn't matter, right? He saw the morning star and he realized enlightenment. He said, I, together with all beings and the great earth, attain the way. Translated, that means, oh my God, we're all awake. We've all always been awake. The nature of everything is awakeness. I'm translating freely. I, together with all beings and the great earth, attain the way, just means, I see it. The significance of this sentence in the history of Buddhism is a really, really big deal, because what it makes sure we know is this is not his, and it does not belong to him, and he is not unique. It is not separate from you. So in the myth, the realization is, oh my God, we're awake. Not, I woke up and you didn't. That's interesting. Oh my God, we're awakeness. That's the thing. The earth is alive. I am alive. You are alive. We are life. I am identified with life itself. I am identified. I now see that my true identity is that which is awake. It is aware. It is vibrant. It is responsive. It is alive. Can you feel that? That's a totally different deal than, I don't have my striker. See this? Not awake. This, I can feel that. That's a miracle. Matter. But aware matter, awake matter. Can you, that's astounding. That matter, we think of as earth, developed in such a way that some of it started to wake up. And then it split and split and split and split, and then it showed up as that tree out there, and my cat when I get home, and the stingray, and the eagle, and then finally a biped, a two-legged, that did the greatest miracle of all, which is I'm aware of myself. My cat doesn't know she's a cat. She doesn't know she's a cat. She doesn't know she's going to die. She doesn't know that she's consciousness in the field of time. But I do. And you do, and you do, and you do. Self-aware. Can you imagine such a thing? That's a miracle beyond a miracle. So when we describe, the Buddha's enlightenment wasn't like one person suddenly elevating themselves to something else, just becoming aware, oh my God, I'm life. I'm just life-lifing. I'm just awarenessing. That's it. I'm aware. And this particular expression, this particular one that he called Shakyamuni, that I call Busho, going, gone. Going, gone. In the field of time. Poof. It shows up, it's there for a couple decades, poof. It'll be long forgotten. 100 years from now, no one will know my name. Everything I say will be gone. Not a problem. Because this is just an expression. Temporary expression of awakeness. Right? That's why I always love the metaphor given to me by my teachers, the fist. This shape of the hand. It's dead. Oh, the death of the fist. It's tragic. It cracked open. Different fist. A little bit different. Oh no! A little bit different. Can you feel it? Infinite fists. Every breath you've taken so far today, because you've been noticing your breathing. They've all been different, have they not? Every breath different. Wow. Every breath different, each one. A birth, an arising, a change, and a death. And at the same time, there you are, the breather. Hanging out breathing, ain't no thing. Isn't that interesting? Right? So that's the nature of the awakening, is I'm becoming less and less all the time identified with the vehicle of the light and more identified with the light. Isn't that beautiful? We get to do both. The way Joseph Campbell used to teach it, you guys know Joseph Campbell, right? Was if I'm identified with the light bulb, I'm scared because it's going to burn out. And that's not a good day if I'm identified with the bulb. If I'm identified with the light, not a problem. Replace the bulb. It's okay, right? At age 19, Shakyamuni leapt over the palace walls in the dead of night and shaved off his hair. It's part of the myth. He's born as a prince. He's going to inherit his father's kingdom, infinite wealth, beautiful wife, beautiful kid. Everything's going to be great. And he's like, none of this solves the problem of suffering. This isn't who I really am. I'm out of here. He was quoted as saying. And so leaving the palace is the metaphor for, wait, it can't just be this. I have to expand beyond the walls of what I have been told my life is. There must be something else. Shaving his head, of course, is symbolic of casting off his attachments. After that, he practiced austerities for 6 years. I hope that sounds familiar. Austerities. Surely they will be the thing that purifies you from your sinful nature. I'm mixing my Christian and my Buddhist language because it's human language. If only I could get rid of the badness in me, then surely Whatever the badness looks like, right? Is that religious badness, or is that your addiction to Twinkies? Is that your browser history? I don't know. Your relationships? Your whatever. Surely you've got some hair you need to shave off. Oh dear, surely there are some austerities. There must be something that can purify you, you know? Oh dear. In the myth, he practices austerities for 6 years. In real life, he probably just did some pretty intense yogic meditation tradition stuff in the wilds of India for as many years as that was. Subsequently, he sat on the indestructible seat. He sat on the indestructible seat. You've already figured out how this kind of stuff works, and so you've already figured out, oh, that must be where I'm sitting now. You are correct. The indestructible seat. In the myth, he sits under the tree, the Bodhi tree, the awakening tree. This is the tree of life. It's at the center of the cosmos. In the Christian myth, it's in the garden. In the Buddhist myth, it's at the center of the universe, axis mundi, if we're feeling really, really Latin. The pole star of the universe, the still spot, the still point, the indestructible seat. Its circumference is nowhere and its center is everywhere. It's where you are. It could only ever be where you are. This is not a literal physical location. That makes it small, and that means we're all in the wrong place because we are in Egan, Minnesota, as opposed to in Bodh Gaya in northern India, where clearly the center of the universe is. And if we could just go there and sit under that tree, then, can you feel? This is what happens when we ruin the myth. And you go, oh, God, no. Don't kill it. Please don't pin that butterfly to the cardboard. Don't. You are sitting in that seat. You were born in that seat. You have lived your life in that seat. You will die in that seat. It is yours. You will also not die in that seat. It's so yours. It's indestructible. He sat so immobile that spiders spun webs in his eyebrows and magpies built a nest on top of his head. Damn! I'm noticing no magpies in this room. So evidently you're all twitching so much during meditation that the magpies are dissuaded from building nests on your head. Wow! Religion's weird, isn't it? It's obviously silly, but it's a beautiful metaphor for all. Can you imagine how still that is? And the truth is, you're all sitting that still. Many things have come to roost and rest on you since you've been sitting still. I mean today, but I mean in your life. I think when we sit still, the magpie of grief can rest upon us. The magpie of joy. The spiders of confusion, all the little things that we imagine are apart from us start to seek us out for refuge. A spider must trust you pretty deeply in order to build her nest in your eyebrows. You know, that magpie must really believe you're going to stay still in order to spend the time to arrange all the twigs and then lay her eggs. Can you imagine? That's a lot of trust. It's a metaphor. I bet if I asked you if you saw something in your heart right now that you didn't notice this morning at 9, I bet you'd be able to see there's something there. It's come to roost. Maybe there was something here at 9 that has since left. I don't know. Reeds grew up between his legs, and he sat tranquilly and erect for 6 years. And at the age of 30, on the 8th day of the 12th month, as the morning star appeared, he was suddenly enlightened. I, together with all beings and the great earth, attained the way. That was his first lion's roar. And then talks about how he taught for many, many years, and he passed the tradition on to the next in line. The next in line's Dharma name, translated into English, is light drinker, great practitioner. That's really cool. Light drinker. I wonder what that was in Sanskrit. Light drinker. Well, this is the same myth, so Mahakashyapa would be light drinker. I didn't know about the great practitioner part. This is a Japanese version of a Chinese version of an Indian version. It's a myth, right? But the idea that the teaching can be passed on is very, very important. The reason that's very important in our story, and I will not go down this rabbit hole because this is a rabbit hole, is we've already got through saying, as we listen to his quote, oh, it's everybody all the time, forever, always. Then why would there be something specific that you needed to hand on to Mary Jude? That Mary Jude hands on to Mary, that Mary hands on to Karen. Why? Like, how come there's even a practice? That's one of the central questions at the heart of meditation traditions is, oh, our nature is awakening. We're already awake. That's the thing. Then clearly there's nothing to do. So why did you waste $50 and drive across town? You could be at the mall. You could be doing something today that would be a lot more immediately gratifying or at least more pleasurable than sitting and staring. I mean, why do it? That's a central, don't you think? That's like a central spiritual question. Why does my humanity need to go through the motions of remembering all of the time what it really is? Does it matter if I remember? These are pretty big questions. And even though his methods of expression, his stories, his parables, his metaphors, and his explanation were different on more than 360 meetings over the 49 years that he taught, they are all nothing more than the expression of the principle of awakening. That is to say, and this is confusing, so hang in there, folks. I is not Buddha. Even Buddha comes from this I. And it does not only give birth to Buddha, all beings and the great earth also come from here. So the true I, the true self, the true nature of who we all are, there's the ground. Alexis comes from it, and Gordon comes from it, and Gage comes from it, and Leah comes from it, and Erica comes from it. Does that make sense? All fists are formed and opened and are birth and death from the same body. The great I. Right? Please do not think of Buddha as having become enlightened. Do not see Buddha as any way outside of all of the beings on earth. Even though mountains, rivers, and their myriad forms flourish in great abundance, none are left out of the eye of the Buddha. All of you here are standing in the Buddha's eye. And it is not that you are standing here, the eye is enfolded within you. It's doing the thing that Scripture often does, which is it keeps dancing back and forth between the absolute and the relative. I know this is trippy for some folks, but like, you already are that. You better wake up to the fact you already are that. And nothing will happen when you wake up to that because it's already there, but you don't know that, and so you need to do it. But you don't need to worry about doing it because it doesn't matter if you do, so do it. And you're like, wait, what? And that's why I've already said way more than I probably ever should have, because anything that I say now is just going to add to the confusion. I love that, though, and the reason I love the dance is because it makes sense to me. My absolute nature is awakening, but I also know that words won't get there all the way, right? And that's non-conceptual. And I don't know about you guys, but I am identified with my body most of the time. I forget. I keep thinking this is me. That this is the edge of me. This is the boundary of me. That I stop right here. That's the boundary of me, right? And so my hunger pains must be mine. They must be me. And I want to tweak them and I want to control them. And my sadness must be mine. That must be me. There's an isolation and a loneliness to that. But I usually don't examine that. I usually don't remember that you know the hunger. You know exactly the hunger. And you know the sad. Of course you know the sad. And even though my fist looks like this and yours maybe looks like this, you know the fist. And you know the opening of the fist. And you know the fear. And you know the gratitude. And you know the hope. And you know the confusion. There is no place for me to go. There's nothing for me to wake up to. And yet, isn't it beautiful that the one container, the one individual expression really does want to remember? How badly the wave wants to remember that it's the ocean. And then when it reaches the shore, nothing's lost. It's okay. And at the same time, it's really scared because it thinks it's going to end. And both of those things can be true at the same time. And so half the time he's saying he sat still for 6 years, and animals came, and reeds grew, and birds came, because he woke up. That's true. And at the same time, it was already awake. He didn't invent it. It's always been that way. Can you feel why that dance becomes necessary? I really do want to honor the experience of this little wave, who so often forgets that he's not your wave and your wave and your wave. He so often gets scared about the idea of the shore. He has so many questions about how he came to be and why the shape of this wave is this shape. He's so preoccupied with that. Do the other waves like him? It feels very human, doesn't it? It's a precious experience. And so I never want to take away the relative by using the absolute, and I never want to take away the absolute by using the relative. I don't. They're both really important. Sure, he woke up. Some guy 2,500 years ago probably sat still, probably woke up. Buddha's probably an amalgamation of a whole bunch of teachers who lived at about that time, and they got blurred into one myth. That's fine. That's a very possible human thing. The part of me that encounters that as historical fact is important so that I can remember. No, Cynthia in actual real life gets to wake up in that body. She gets to wake up. That's part of her human inheritance, is to remember that she's more than just human. It's unique to Cynthia. Only she can do it. Only Ian can wake up Ian. That's his job. And at the same time go, they both already are that. It's fine. Whether the fingers ever figure out they're part of a hand that's attached to an arm, that's attached to a body, it doesn't matter. They're still handing just fine. They're still fingers. They're still doing their thing. Everything's fine. Can you feel the both? Can you feel the both and of that? How vitally important it is to go, God, I've got to do this. This is really important. And at the same time, it's okay. I hope you can maybe see it more easily in little kids. I don't have very many young kids in my life. But when you see a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, especially when they get to be about 4 or 5, and it's time for school, and it's time for socialization, you can kind of feel, I still remember this in the cells of my body, so maybe you can touch it that way. I can still feel how badly I wanted to be good. I wouldn't have known that consciously at the time, but if I had somehow been able to pause a moment of my 5-year-old life with my adult brain now and go all the way down to the bottom and go, what is he trying to do at any given moment? Is he struggling with his galoshes, right? Or he can't open the plastic wrap around his snackables, or whatever that he's packed for his lunch, or he's trying to be late for the bus, or not wanting to be late for the bus, or showing Mom, look, the turkey, a thing that we made into a hand in its Thanksgiving, and I did right? If I could follow all of that down to the very, very bottom, it probably would have just said, I just want to be good. I just want to be good. Can you feel how that's a human thing? I want to be good. That's very human. And at the very same time, I can imagine being the loving presence to that 5-year-old and watching him want to be good and know, yeah, I did too. Everybody does. That makes sense. That's completely understandable human expression of enlightenment, I want to be good. While I would know the whole time, you already are. Nothing could possibly take that away. You were born that way. It's okay. Can you feel the earnestness of a kid like, oh, I'm just trying to be good? And you're thinking, oh, kiddo. You couldn't possibly spoil that in a trillion lifetimes of doing nothing but the wrong thing. Impossible. Indestructible. So for the Buddha in the myth to wake up to, oh, boom. I had to strive. I had to work. I had to renounce. I had to push. Can you feel? There's effort. And at the very same time, oh. Can you see the beauty in both of those things? Can you feel the beauty in both of those things? I hope you can, because they're you. I get the great privilege of sitting in this seat. In a Zen setting, the teacher faces in and everybody else faces out. Everybody faces the wall in a Zen center, and the teacher faces in. There's logistical reasons, and there's always really boring practical reasons why that is, so he can keep an eye on the room and know where the flow is, and there's a reason he has to face in. And I'm saying he because that's the tradition, although it could be either gender. What I mean when I say it's a great privilege to sit in the seat was, what that means is the teacher gets to go from time to time. Theoretically, you are doing none of that, right? Because by golly, there are magpies trying to make nests on your head, so there's no time for casting about. You are too busy. You are cultivating your own enlightenment, so of course you're not moving your head around. Good Lord. I know none of you would ever do that. But hypothetically, the person sitting in the teacher seat who gets to face in, gets to look around, and every single time the teacher sees a room of Buddhas, it's really clear. That vision is not unique to me. You get to see it too. You get to see at the very same time. This person is wrestling with conflict. They're having a difficult experience. They're having a human constriction in their life right now. Their kid hasn't talked to them in 3 months. They're worried about their uncle's cancer. The election scared the crap out of them. They're not sure about their safety in their marriage anymore. Are they going to have to put their cat down in 3 months? The vet isn't sure. You know that they're having a human experience, and some part of them is completely identified with that thing. And it makes perfect sense to you because you've had all of those experiences. Fear and hope and confusion and grasping. Oh, and aversion and greed and avoidance. You know that. They're having exactly the same experience you know so well. But in this setting, you also can see another part of them that's being expressed. Look how they're sitting up, still in the middle of it. The maelstrom of their life. The fear rising, the hope crashing, the stories, the feelings, all of it. And they're sitting so still. They're so brave right in the middle of it. They're sitting up. My God, they're sitting up in the middle of it. They're not running. They're not fighting. They're not pushing away. They're not grasping. There they are. They're just seeing it. They're willing to feel it. They're willing to be witness to it. They're trying as hard as they can in their little human container to say, come on in. I know that I am awareness. I know I am love. I know I am compassion. That's my nature. I have been compassionate since before there was even a body. That has been me. I will meet you. It's okay that you're here. I promise I'm big enough for every single one of the ways. I will do it. I also have another nature called wisdom. I will tell you the truth. Won't that be nice? I'll tell you the truth. Yeah. So you're getting to see a fully human do a fully human thing, and at the same time you get to go, oh, look. Buddha, how could it be different? Buddha, how could it be different? Of course. Of course. Realized Buddha, unrealized Buddha, what? Who cares? Literally. It doesn't matter. There's the fullness of our humanity, joining the fullness of our awakened nature. Every single time we do this. So this is the time, this is the day, this is the moment in the yearly calendar that we get to remind ourselves the centrality of the myth, whether we imagine that we're Buddhists or Christians or angry atheists or all of the above. I've managed to be all three at the same time. That's just an aside. I've managed that. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I wanted to add agnosticism, so there was like 4 in the air at the same time. That was hard. So I'm working on it. But regardless, can you feel that what we're describing here is outside of all of that? It includes all of that. All of those are beautiful ways of being with this stuff. But it is important that in the darkest time of the year, we remember there's a story that informs all of us of somebody sitting up straight and realizing that they were truth, and they were compassion, and they were awakeness, and that was true for everyone. So I will leave you with this, because we have a schedule to follow. While the seasons come and go, and the mountains, rivers, and the great earth change with time, you should know. This is Buddha raising his eyebrows and blinking his eyes. Therefore, clarify Buddha's enlightenment and your own enlightenment. Let your answer flow from your heart without borrowing the words of another. The enlightenment is universal, but no one else's words can describe it but yours. So reminding us, as this piece does, that the true words will flow from your heart is an important reminder for all of us. I'll be happy to hand this out to all of you. I encourage you to spend some time with it in coming days. If it doesn't make sense, recycle it. It doesn't matter. But I'm grateful to be with you here in this space. It's wonderful to be a Buddha with other Buddhas, don't you think? And that's pretty cool. And that's as much as I think I have today. So I thank you. I thank you.